calls to action. This is about, I mean, obviously, the main action you want people to take on an e-commerce site is for people to add products to basket and then continue through the checkout. And the way that you kind of prompt people to do that, it can have a big effect on whether they actually sort of follow your process or not. The add to basket button, that's one thing that is kind of obviously the most important button on a whole website. Sometimes you sort of see it neglected, people don't take enough care over it, it doesn't stand out enough. That's the main thing, is that add to basket button has got to stand out above every other button and link on your web page. It should be, ideally, a different colour to all of the other buttons on your site. I read a test when I was kind of putting this together that consistently among various different retailers that an orange add to basket always won the conversion rate tests, and that's the colour they recommend using for an add to basket button. That's the kind of thing that, I mean, that can be only very tiny, you know, fractions of a % increase, but if you're a retailer like Currys, for instance, that's doing, you know, many hundreds of millions of pounds on the internet, you know, 0.001% increase in your conversion rate is significant. Also make sure your add to basket button is the biggest button on the product page. It should be where everybody's attention is drawn to. People are kind of faffing around trying to find where it is. You've lost the battle even before you've started. And again, following that recommendation of trying to make sure your site follows the kind of pattern that people are used to using when they're using a website. Most add to basket buttons happen to be next to the price. So try and position it there. That's where people are expecting to see it. The wording of the button as well, I mean, add to basket is self-explanatory. You would think that is the obvious phrase to use for an add to basket, add to cart sort of button, but it's not uncommon for us to come across buttons that are just not worded in a way that you would expect, and I'll come onto this a bit later about testing and thinking about your website as your customers do. Phrases like buy now, add to basket, checkout now for your checkout buttons, those are the kind of generally accepted phrases. If you've got anything else on your site that doesn't say add to basket, then have a think about whether it's really telling the customer what you want them to do. I was looking at a site recently, it's got process order instead of continue to checkout or something like that, and it was just a little bit too ambiguous and vague for people. And it's one of those things, if having it worded correctly, it's going to take you 5 seconds to change. If it wins you an extra sale a month or so, it's worth doing. So think carefully about that. And when I refer to testing, there's a website that we've used. It's called Visual Website Optimizer. It's a way that you can set up, for instance, on a product page, like with that testing of the colours, for instance, you can have 2 different versions of the same page, and you run it through this system and run it for a month, say, and it will tell you which version of the page is the most effective. It's only like you pay a subscription fee to it. It's not an expensive system. It's very easy. You don't have to be technically minded to be able to do it. It's just a great split testing tool. So that's a really good site to make use of and start trying to test some of your products and your product pages.